Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today, I'm joined by the co-founder of Geektastic, Mr. Rick Brownlow. How are you today, Rick?
Very well, thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad you're on the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to because you've done so much in terms of your background. I'm looking forward to just diving into this. So first question, as always, can you just let me know what it is you do and Geektastic does?
Sure. So yeah, we're a technical assessment platform. We help hiring teams assess candidates coming forward for roles. We started it back in 2016, born out of frustration, like all good startups should be. There were plenty of platforms out there that screen candidates with machines, and we wanted to do it with a human. We built up a community of humans who do the reviews. We originally pitched it at recruitment agencies, spent 6 months flogging that one. It didn't work, so we ended up going direct to clients. So we work with companies like Just Giving and Skyscanner and Sainsbury's.
Amazing.
Some really cool brands.
And you say it's born out of frustration. What were you doing beforehand to get frustrated about it?
So I've worked so Sporting Bet was where I first really saw this. I came out of a small startup, went into Sporting Bet as the head of mobile. We grew the mobile team to, 30, 40 people there.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of interviews we had to do to find that number was off the charts.
Yeah.
And you end up spending half your time when you should be shipping product doing interviews of candidates who the recruitment agent said, this is the most incredible iOS developer you've ever seen. You go through a process, you drag developers off working on projects, they sit down, they interview, and they go, no, this really isn't very good at all. We need to see the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So if you're looking at sort of getting down from 10 to 1 in terms of number of people you might meet to the number of people you hire, you're just wasting so much time.
Yeah, massively. It's interesting you bring up the fact that you tried to flog it to recruiters and agencies. Why do you think that they said no? Why do you think they weren't interested?
So not all of them, to be fair. It just wasn't enough. We didn't get critical mass.
Got you.
But in the most part, they didn't really see this as their job. So
interesting.
And now we've actually spent some time working with some agencies to really understand this. I think agencies, some of them get a bad rap. They think everyone perceives their fees to be sky high, not really sure what they do. But when you actually sit inside one and look at what they're doing, there's an awful lot of process that's put in place. But what they didn't want to do is quality control. Their view is I can find a good person that matches your requirements, but you, the client, should be the ones doing the technical assessment piece.
Got you.
And what we thought this should originally do is we would take a candidate, put them through Geektastic, and once that candidate has done one assessment, that could be used for multiple clients.
Right.
We thought from a value add proposition, you're going out speaking to a candidate, say, hey, look, if I put you forward for 10 roles, you're going to have to do 10 assessments with 10 different companies. Come and do this one, and you can basically get fast tracked. But their view was, I've got no guarantee. If I sink a whole load of cost into the Geektastic platform to get these candidates screened and they don't get hired, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
Because, it's basically quite hand to mouth on an agency model, which is very contingent on actually placing that person.
Yeah, that's really interesting, though, because it makes sense on paper, I guess, for them. But in the real world example, they obviously didn't see that need. I wonder if they would now, though, because of the timings and everything like that. It's one of those things that, would you ever go back to that and ever sort of test that market again?
We do work with a couple, actually, but I'd say it was 5% of the market.
Wow.
I heard horror stories, which were, but Rick, if I put all my candidates through your system, that means you're going to take out some candidates and tell me they're not very good that I could have actually placed. And my view is, well, you shouldn't be placing them. If they're not good, then they're not right for the role. But that's how I make my money.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think the world is shifting slowly. There's an awful lot of talk around that industry being disrupted, but it isn't going to get disrupted by technical platforms. It's going to get disrupted by people focused more on quality and long-term value as opposed to just focused on the next week's placements or next month's placements.
Yeah. So let's go back to 2016 when you started this or co-founded this with did you start from day one with your co-founder?
Yeah, so we actually worked at the previous startup. So I brought Charles in at Bonza, spent 9 months trying to find a CTO. And again, that was sort of proved in this process. We carried on working together in this one. We sat there at the end of the last one, twiddling our thumbs, going, what are we going to do next? Let's try and solve that problem. So
It's like going out of the prep coffee shop conversations.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And there were two businesses. We had an idea of which one should we do, and we thought this one had the most legs.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate that having worked with somebody, I mean, yeah, running a startup it's stressful to say the least.
Yeah, massively.
Times. And if you
Let's talk about that relationship then with co-founders, because that's often one of the things that founders have trouble with, either doing it alone, going from a co-founder from day one, or bringing a co-founder in at a certain point, maybe 6-7 months in. Obviously, you did it from day one. What were the benefits of you doing that? Obviously, you also knew him from before, which proves a massive relationship benefit already. But I've seen massive horror stories of founders going at it together and just not working out. How do you and your co-founder work and make sure that the dynamic meets the requirements for growth in the business?
That's a great question. I guess we're attacking different areas. I think where it's dangerous if you've got two co-founders who cross over too much.
Yeah, agreed.
And for us, I'm not technical. I've worked in development teams. I understand technology, but you wouldn't let me loose on a code base. Charles has been running engineering teams since the internet sort of started, really. Right. So he's lived in that space, and we don't cross over and we don't step on each other's toes. So I leave all the technical decisions to him, and he'll leave a lot of the sort of business development stuff to me. So I think that works well.
Yeah.
The problems are going to be where, you've got two technical heads locking horns or two biz dev people. We should be taking different strategies. But again, bringing somebody in later on, the trouble is that you've already forged a path, and whoever comes in is going to want to do something different.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it is a risk for any of those avenues you want to go down, either solo, co-founder from day one, or co-founder later on. You're always going to have those conversations, even with yourself, about the role in the business. You and Charles both had your defined role beforehand, which is great because it probably saved so much of that time when you were starting off to refine that, because you already knew that, he's Mr. Tech, I'm Mr. Biz Dev, sort of growth. What were some of the challenges when you first started out? Maybe not together, but just in general to get Geektastic.
I'd almost forgotten about this actually, but there were three of us from day one. Funnily enough.
Oh, this is awkward.
Yeah. This actually proves my point. Is there were two technical, so Charles and another guy who were both technical.
Yeah.
And myself, and there was almost from day one a sort of locking of horns over routes to take. Should we be building stuff which has got sort of longevity to it, or should we just trying to work things as quickly as possible? That Facebook sort of, I don't know, break it quickly, move fast and break things versus much more sort of stable. We don't want to have to rewrite this in a year's time. And that didn't work out. So actually, one of the original co-founders left after 6 months, something like that, which simplified things a lot. But I much prefer to figure that out then than in 2 years' time. I remember actually we were just trying to raise some VC money, and we all sat there around the table going, right, we're all together on this. So we absolutely align that when we sit there in front of the VCs tomorrow or whenever it is, that we're all absolutely on the same page. And actually the next day we then had another conversation, which was, I'm not on the same page as you guys. This isn't going to work out. How do I get out of here now? And it was all very grown up. It worked okay, but it was the right thing to do. Yeah,
exactly. And it probably felt more the right thing to do looking back than in that moment. I'm sure in that moment you had a moment of like, holy shit, we've just lost our third wheel as a team.
Yeah. I know it's hell, but everything seems worse at the time. Go home, sleep on it, come back the next day, have a grown-up conversation, and
exactly. So you've got, how many investment rounds have you gone through?
Oh god, we've done the typical British thing, which is small little rounds, small angel round. So we've gone through, I guess, 3 rounds of funding. We've got that's a whole other story. But we've done small sort of boutique family office, angel round, second angel round.
Yeah.
And then we went through a JV. So we've tried everything. We'd never taken the VC route. It's hard to convince VCs that we're going to be this magic $1 billion business.
Yeah.
I think if we'd done this in the US, it would have been a very different story. you can basically stick another naught on the end of every round. Instead of raising 250 grand, you'd be raising 2.5 million.
It is strange about the difference in mentality from UK, Europe to the US, you know, shiny Silicon Valley and across the whole of US in terms of the view that investors have on looking and valuing a company. It does seem to be two very different conversations that people have.
Yeah, it's also not just so much around how you value it, it's how you grow it and what the metrics are. What do I want to see? Everybody here is just so just fixed on, right, I've got to see revenue quickly. I want to see this proven. Whereas I think, and maybe this is years gone by versus now, people, I just want to see scale, just get loads of users on the platform. I don't care about money. Whereas when you're speaking to angel investors, they're seeing this as a much shorter period turnaround, and they're looking for a 2 or 3x return rather than the 100 times return that VCs want to get.
Yeah.
So, it's a whole different thing. But actually, with hindsight, I'm glad we always did keep it lean. That if we had raised bucket loads of cash, we'd have employed loads of people. And then when things don't go how they're going to go,
imagine the extra pressure.
Nothing ever goes the way you want it to go.
No, exactly.
Things pivot or you change or whatever it is, then that can be difficult. So keeping it with fewer people is better, actually.
Exactly. So I've got a couple of questions that actually a lot of I've got a group full of founders. Some of the questions that they often ask is, especially with the investment side, it's like, what methods did you use to find the investors to pitch to?
So people I knew historically, so either invested in previous businesses I was in, or just through networking. So speak to people.
Yeah.
Secondly was, absolutely. And at that stage, you're buying into the person as much as it's the business. You're buying into the person or the people who are running it. You haven't got a lot. You've got a proof of concept. You've got one user paying you a nominal amount of money. Or in our case, we had a product with nobody using it. In fact, we were pitching it to recruitment agencies. So that was, I guess, the stage one. Stage two was then going to angel groups. So Surrey 100 or whatever they're called, and Cambridge Angels, and et cetera, et cetera. So going around pitching to groups of sort of retired or semi-retired accountants and lawyers, and you're talking about assessing Python skills, and everybody's glazing over.
Yeah.
I had one where somebody was asleep at the back of the room. That was how really involved in the whole pitch.
At what point do you just, in that moment, did you just think, I might as well just go home?
Well, it's weird. I think you just kind of, people have just sitting there listening to 15-minute pitches all day long and just sort of had enough. So that was a bit tough. I had one stop. Somebody stood up halfway through a 15-20-minute pitch and said, look, can I just stop you here? Does anybody in the room have a clue what he's talking about? At which point, everybody sort of went, well, I've got a maybe, don't know. Wow. And you then have to go, damn. And I've really been conscious about making it not too technical.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good instant feedback for you as a presenter.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Or they're just really bad matching.
Yeah, exactly.
You need people in the room who, if you're pitching a tech business, then if you don't know anything about tech, you probably shouldn't have been in the room in the first place. You
don't want a retired accountant that doesn't know how to use an iPhone.
No, absolutely.
Massive generalization there, but you know.
So that was a lot of effectively it's a numbers game there. Every you go to, you probably pick up 2 angels off each one, so you've just got to keep going. You don't get disheartened if somebody falls asleep halfway through your pitch.
I mean, I'm not sure what I would have done if I noticed someone snoring. I mean, if they were snoring, I think that would have
that justified walking over and giving them a little nudge.
Yeah, or just waking them up with a microphone in front of them, going, "So, what's that question?"
Think of this.
Yeah. Harsh but fair, I think that would have been classed as. And secondly, Geektastic in terms of size. So what have you guys got? A team in place now? How are your day-to-day operations looking?
So we've got about 150 reviewers. So our model always been to grow the review team. Our challenge is how you balance the number of challenges coming in, so the number of candidates being assessed versus the reviewers. So, and that was always a challenge. How do you grow this? They're all remote. They're all employed. They've got day jobs working at Google, Amazon, you name it, and they work for us in their free time, I guess, or lunchtime, or maybe even when they're doing their job. Um,
I think we all know it's probably the latter.
well, absolutely. And then we had 2 other developers who helped build the platform. In fact, we have 4 developers, but 2 at any time. They're dialed down at the moment just because we don't need them. So everything, we're 100% remote. We just pull on people as we need to build it. And then myself and Charles are focused on the sort of keeping the business going.
Fantastic. You mentioned the word earlier, but streamlined. That is such a streamlined operation. And was that a conscious thing for you guys to do? Did you know you wanted to keep it as trim as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes back to the comment. I think if we got the VC money and we'd gone down that route, I wouldn't have said no to it. But actually, when you sit down and think about it, I've run bonds and we got 30 odd people. And when you're writing big checks, I mean, it's not big compared to other companies, but it's biggest check I've ever written. You're writing that every month and sort of worried about making the numbers every month to be able to do that. This is a much different business.
Yeah.
Because it's lean. You're not worried about that. So you can dial it up and dial it down as you need to.
It almost sounds like you consciously made the business to suit your lifestyle a little bit. It's reading between the lines a little bit.
I think so. I think it was more born out of just keeping it, not going over the top, basically. Calling on things as you need them. And if we need something built, then we've got the money to do that, but then not take on the additional pressures of that.
Makes sense. And where do you want to go with Geektastic? What's the end goal for you guys?
Oh, everybody always asks this, and we kind of, I don't know.
Change your answer every time.
Depends who we're pitching to.
Yeah.
So no, for now, I'm not really worried about where the end game is. It's just kind of keep on growing it, keep on scaling it, and delivering a good quality service to clients. We're kind of pivoting a little bit at the moment. Everybody keeps asking. Obviously, to get our reviewers, we've had to assess thousands of developers to find the good 150.
Yeah.
We're now sort of bolting on additional services where people can access the developer community that we've built up behind the platform.
Interesting.
So you can use the platform to assess candidates and also source them as well. And we're just working out how to do that properly. I don't want to be an agency. I don't want to have a team of consultants. But at the other side of it, I know that providing access where you haven't got humans involved is very difficult.
Yeah.
You're always hiring somebody is hiring a human, and you need some human interaction on that. And AI and machine learning is nowhere near where you need it to be able to do that properly.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Hopefully. It sounds like from what you just said there sounds like there's a thin line between putting the business into almost a different realm of almost turning it into more of a recruiter and keeping it on that community aspect of developers and helping them to the best of their ability. Because obviously on the recruiter side, there's probably on a business level, there's a great cash incentive to go down that route if you've already dealing with amazing developers.
Yeah. It's weird. Everybody gets very sort of excited by the revenues that looks like you should be able to make off recruitment, but you're talking about marrying up. You need an awful lot of liquidity. So I think for us, we're focusing on the remote market. And it's kind of fortuitous as to the way the world's very unfortunately gone the last couple of weeks. But we always said we think that's going to be the future. We think that the saturation of or the lack of developers locally in London or San Francisco or wherever you are, Leeds, it's very hard and very expensive to hire locally. I think the world's going to start saying, actually, they don't need to be based here. They can be based in Brazil or Argentina or Poland or whatever. And I think all that's happened now is that this has proved that you can do it, that remote working does work. A number of people I spoke to, and they're like, we'd never go remote. I don't trust my team to work remotely. They won't get any work done. And then 2 weeks later, everybody's going, I haven't got a choice. It's happened. And actually, it's not so bad.
No, exactly. I think it's forced a lot of businesses to re-look at how they build culture and how they hire in the first place. But I think more importantly, it's forced people to realize how they want to work. Because before this, it was, you wake up, you get your tube, you get your train, you go into the office, you finish at 5, 6, 7 o'clock, get home, have dinner.
Yeah.
That's completely been turned on its head to, actually, I can do my whole day's work in 4 or 5 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
For years, I've been a big believer in the whole 9 to 5 thing most people could get their work done in half that amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a pattern that or this comfort zone, I guess, that we're just used to from years and years of how people run businesses.
No, I mean, you couldn't have done this 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
No, imagine, it would have caused a shit show in terms of working.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're right. There's going to be a huge shift, and it was happening already. I think in the States it's a lot more prevalent than here.
Yeah.
But now, and there's also been a shift already of people having flexible working hours. You don't have to do the 9 to 5. You can do the 8 to whatever and miss the commuter crush in the morning on the tubes and the trains. But now people are saying, actually, I don't even want to come in at all. I can do my job perfectly well from home.
Yeah. How, from someone that has been running a business with most of your staff being remote, how have you managed that as opposed to when you had that team of 30? Was there a shift in your leadership style to manage the teams differently?
So in the last business, we had 2 different offices. So we had an office in Guernsey and an office in London. So I was quite used to managing things through Skype then rather than Zoom, but whatever, and having regular catch-ups with people. I think it's just the communications. It's avoiding, there's so much written about this now, it's avoiding those water cooler moments where people are just sitting there chatting, making decisions, and then somebody else who wasn't in party to that conversation. But that happens anyway. That happens when you're in an office of 30 people or 200 people on different floors. So I think people worry about these things too much and think that it's so fundamentally different. There's a lot of common sense on this. It's don't leave people to do their own thing for a week and keep in touch with people and make sure that when you're having a catch up, it isn't just formal, right, let's get down to talk about work and what about how's the family, what's the weather doing. Whenever we had our mornings to catch up, we were constantly talking about politics and Brexit and this and that and what's going on in Poland and what's going on in wherever it was. So
you're keeping it really light then.
No. He talks about the weather.
Right, what's happening with Brexit today, guys? And then we'll get on with work.
Yes.
Everyone's forgotten about Brexit now anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like whatever's what's ever fed to us from the outside world is what we focus on.
Yeah.
But hey. So in terms of what's going on now then, as we're slowly touching upon this subject, have you had to shift or anything, or has it been fairly steady for you?
No, I've definitely seen a lot less candidates being pushed through the system. So hiring has definitely slowed down, and we saw that almost instantly.
Yeah.
Not for everybody, but for some businesses. I'm expecting that as a trend going forward. For us, and maybe this will kickstart our focus on providing remote developers. We've spoken to a couple of companies or heard on the grapevine a couple of companies who had a development team. They went all remote a couple of weeks ago, and that's working for them. But now they've got to furlough their team. They're worried that the team will then go and disappear. So they'll end up with no developers at the end of this process because they're all employable, and there are other companies who aren't affected in the same way. And therefore, one might say that after that, if they've bought into the idea that remote works, they might then say, okay, well, we'll keep on doing remote. They don't have to be based here. They can be based anywhere. So there's maybe a shift that we'll make towards that. But at the moment, it's just trying to pick up new clients on the code challenge side of things.
That's it. And like you just mentioned, there are still companies out there that effectively almost nothing has changed, which is really nice to focus on. And if you can be providing service for them, fantastic. But you're building it really does sound like you've built an incredible resource for both developers and businesses, and pairing those two together in the most seamless way is definitely the way forward. Listen, Rick, one of my final questions to you is, and because of your background, because of your experience, I would love to just find out if you could give 3 tips to another founder to work in that trim, streamlined fashion. What would be those 3 tips that you could give them?
To work in the streamlined fashion. Yeah, I just really focus on, do you really need to, can you do anything more effectively, more cost efficiently? So we focus, for example, on not spending, last business, we were hemorrhaging cash on Facebook adverts. And I thought that was the way forward for this business. Keep spending money, make sure this works. And actually, because we didn't have the money, we then focused on content and on SEO. And that I can write until the cows come home, and I can get other people in the community to write cost efficiently. And that's been a far better and more solid way of growing the business. Is don't think that you have to spend all your money on advertising in traditional ways. And I guess, being frugal.
Don't fall for the sexy marketer.
Sorry?
So don't fall for the sexy marketing.
Yeah, just don't try and be innovative about the ways that you can grow the business, and don't think there's only one way of doing it. There's actually a bunch of other ways. And just read tons of blogs and tons of, there's so much content out there about how other businesses have scaled. Like drilling for oil, you've got to keep trying these different ways, whether it's marketing on Quora or Reddit or what have you. Test these things and see what works, because you don't need to spend all your money on Facebook.
Excellent.
Same goes for teams. Can you hire more efficiently elsewhere? Do you need to hire a whole raft of people from day one? I keep it kind of thin and do multiple tasks yourself. Learn it, do it manually, and then try and automate it.
One more, Rick, sorry.
I guess just don't, maybe this was us, but you don't need to go and raise a whole load of money.
Yeah. I think that's such a good one. It's there's a real theme that I think founders start a business and it's almost like, oh, I've got a business idea. I need to make a pitch deck. I need to raise money.
Yeah.
When it's almost I saw a few patterns arising early last year where it was almost getting to that stage where the actual business of business was not happening because it was just ideas and people trying to fund ideas, when actually a lot of their ideas can be created into a business which will fund the business.
Yeah, absolutely. We spent, every time we were doing funding rounds, we would lose 3 months of what we just took our eyes off the ball of growing the business because we were trying to raise cash. And then you've got a whole load of new investors to keep informed, and you're then worried about that because you've got a cash flow runway which is going to last X months, and then you already lost 3 months what you've been raising the money.
Yeah, and once you get into that cycle, I think it's a very hard cycle to get out of. It's a very, you're just chasing that cash, and like you said, there's a lot of businesses out there that are going for the smaller amounts, and then they go, okay, to fix this cycle, I need to go for the big amounts. Yes. When actually sometimes that doesn't fix anything. Yeah,
just get yourself in deeper.
Yeah, basically just make businesses, make more money. There you go.
The old way.
Yeah, do it the old way, guys. That's the key here. But Rick, listen, thank you so much for coming on Founders 365. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, speak to you about Geektastic, speak to you about what you guys are doing over there, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just email me, I guess. Old school rick@geektastic.com.
Love it. Simple, and that's perfect. Listen, Rick, thank you once again for coming on. Really enjoyed this conversation, and I am looking forward to seeing what Geektastic get up to in the near future.
Cool. Thank you, Stu.
Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.